Hello, and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. This is Geek Out 114 over Manufacturing Magic in the series Jeff the Game Master by Jaime Castell and Troy Osgood. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. It does a lot of things well, and it's good, but it probably wouldn't make it to my top 10. I feel like a lot of those reasons are because of how relatable in some instances it was. For example, very beginning of the book is literally 4 a.m. should only happen once, and that's when the sun's on its way to China. And for those who don't know, I am a night owl, and yes, I completely agree.
Absolutely. I was just thinking along the same lines as I was prepping for the stream that um, I really enjoy the book. I've gotten up through book
It
2. I
does a
don't
lot of
know.
elements well, and I
Mhm.
think part of my bias, like it's a great book, but part of my bias is I love lit RPG for the separation and the fantasy and
Mhm.
the ever expanding, pushing technological advancements. And it did that with its
AI.
VR type system,
You're right.
but a lot of the situations the guy was going through was very relatable. Another great quote: "You're our only hope." Wait a minute, did they just Princess Leia me? Obi-Wan, you're our only hope.
Right.
And
Right.
just a lot of the interactions were relatable, but yeah, I
It
guess if it
feels
didn't
closer to
push,
our world than a
yeah.
lot of the other lit RPGs we read. And we've talked about it in previous streams where um, a lot of the reasons why we enjoy reading is to kind of escape into the other worlds. And lit RPG scratches our video game itch. Um, but at the same time, we enjoy it for kind of the isekai feel. Sword Art Online, yes, it's 2022. The time is now. We can go into the virtual space, metaverse, et cetera, et cetera. But um, yeah, when
Since
you're
you said that, I don't know if my notifications are lying to me, but apparently there's a season 4 that just dropped.
really,
Yeah,
wow,
it
I
came through on my Netflix ones, but that's not what. Yeah, I didn't say
I
anything.
I started the spinoff one. I didn't quite get through it all. Or
The
I guess
Gun
it's not
Gal
quite
one,
as no, I guess it's not quite a spinoff because it's
or
still
it's oh OVA.
yeah, yeah.
That something like that. I forget what it means, but it's essentially not canon. It's like in the universe,
Hmm.
possibly main characters, but um, just playing in the realm.
Yes, yes. I have a lot of animes I need to catch up on. We do the audiobooks because we can multitask and adult while still escaping to
Yeah.
the other world. It's kind of hard to read your subtitles while watching and doing dishes or taking care of the kiddos. Anyway, we digress. Um, so
That
this,
is something that I haven't figured out how to get an app to do for me because I can do it to where I highlight stuff and it reads it to me. I can do it where it listens to audio and it puts it out in text, but I can't do, hey, there's supposed to be subtitles here because I know it's a separate file format or typically input separately or at least in
yeah.
relevance to YouTube. So the data has to be there. That's probably what I need to do. I need to get a data scraper to pull it and then to narrate it. Besides the point, we're talking about manufacturing magic. So, one element that I enjoyed, but I wish was expanded upon, was the AI.
Mhm.
Because essentially, what happens is there's a top tier guild who goes and uses a mod or a cheat to allow them to get extra damage, and it ends up freezing the interaction, and they have to put in a help ticket, and the GM shows up and he's not able to resolve it, so he talks to the principalities, as they say, which in short is a AI that kind of runs that area. And so between the interaction of the modification or them trying to cheat, and the principality, the AI interacting with it, it gains sentience, so to speak, where he's now going off script and off his primary path, and then follows or sees the interaction after, having the corruption, or however you want to say it. And then that's what, kind of sparks this whole thing. And I would have liked to see more of like the developer who made the patch. I would have liked to seen more of, yeah, just other things. It did really well in, it's probably also part of the weird relatability where oh, I think it's Tom. Tom, the principality who was of that area, ends up doing all these
Hmm.
changes, and he like slowly goes through all the different emotions. And he's like, "Oh, I did it. I'm happy." Well, I don't really know what happy is. I know it's how it's supposed to be coded or how it's supposed to be
Right.
perceived or displayed,
Right.
but I don't really know what it is. So it was
It,
one of those like it hit home at times. I'm not overly expressive, so people are like, "Oh, well, you didn't enjoy it or you didn't laugh," and I'll say roll for roll on the floor laughing, but it's on the
yeah.
inside. So,
Right.
um, yeah, it's something that I think could be developed more in future books. It did really well with feeling different emotions, and it did make mistakes, and it came to realize it, and it was a different line of code, and
Hmm.
it did well, but that's
Again.
currently an aspect of lit RPGs that I've thoroughly enjoyed, such as Life Reset, where essentially it expands so far and becomes so advanced that we're running into the instance that we have here, where they're essentially janitors, and there's so many aspects
Hmm.
that they can't control it because
Hmm.
of everything that's going on, which was part of why it was implemented. But yeah.
I a couple separate thoughts here. Again, when I was going back and re-listening to this book, the AI I feel isn't too far beyond what we're currently dealing with. Like, and that's part of what
uh,
makes it that
yeah.
much more believable, right? Like some of the lit RPGs, and I want to say we kind of broke this down a bit in one of the Ascend Onlines, where it's kind of that spectrum between, you know, is this more sci-fi? Like, can we see it happening in the near future, or is this more fantasy that like we're kind of playing in the space, but there's some hand waving in the background? And
Yeah.
as much as we wish it would go further, I think since we have well over 100 plus lit RPG books under our belt,
Or
this is a
it
good.
could be someone's favorite, and it's a
Well,
good kind of like bridge into it, and it does very
yes,
well for like
yes,
the MMO aspects and
yes.
the simplicity or complexity of changing the way heals work or changing
If
the generic. And that's what I think it does well for like the next step, because
Mhm.
giant markers above the people's heads for quests and auto runs and blah blah blah, being able to
if
conversate or interact with the world. And I guess
yes.
that's an element it ended up implementing that I really like is um it, short version is real world consequences inside the game world, where like the dragon destroys the first town and
Mhm,
now it's destroyed. It's not just
mhm.
an event that's going to get hot fixed or patched over.
Or
So
instanced or whatnot.
yeah, yeah, affecting the world and feeling like you have a a design in the future or in its progression.
This would be a good book to give to a buddy who like perhaps is coming from like World of Warcraft, maybe even back in the vanilla days up through now, where they're not a super avid reader. Like they maybe don't have a whole bunch of other things going on, but they're like, hey, here's something in the space. Like it's not that far of a step from playing that, where it's like you could relate to them quote unquote when the AI makes it harder and takes away like their, oh, I forget what they call it, the stone, essentially their portal ability, their
I want to say
Hearthstone,
Hearthstone, but that's not right because that's
right?
wow.
But it takes that away, and it takes away kind of like their quick run features, and it throws them back into the immersive world where for me I was kind of getting more of that vanilla World of Warcraft vibe where it's like, okay, we've come so far, we have all this crazy epic stuff, people are playing it, but now they've rolled it back to where all of a sudden we're back in the immersion. You're really having to grind this stuff out to accomplish anything.
Well,
And it's a
that's
love-hate relationship for a lot of players.
and that's where this book did very well for applying multiple perspectives to it because we got to
Yes.
see the extremes of all the people ranting on the forums. We got to see the repercussions
I
of
enjoyed
editing
the
some of the
forum
code. What's up?
interludes. I enjoyed the forum interludes because for me
Yeah.
that felt very, very real because like they don't just live in the game, right? Like so much of that action takes place on the forums of sharing stuff. And like it was literally, you felt like you're reading the forums as like, TLDR, pump experience into it, right? Like, and just the trolls and the whiners and
Oh man, there's another great quote from there, and I wish I pulled. It's something like, "That can't be a thing. That's not real." And then she replies with like, "Talk to humans much?"
uh
And then, hey, here's a stream screenshot or clip or whatever.
mhm, yeah, yeah. Um it
But
was
I mean, we kind of get to see it from all aspects of the AI only has the elements of what it knows to pull from, and that honestly, that's where I'm scared for machine learning
right.
because yeah, me
For me,
TikTok
as I
has
was
taught me some things, and Google Ads is a thing, but the section of the interwebs that I deal with has a lot of trolls and not very nice people, as well as computers are logic where one equals one and two equals two. People are a web of contradictions where it depends on the intent
mhm,
and it could be said in a million different ways and it could be perceived in a million different ways. And for example, I like to do quotes and I literally listened to the quote like 3 times, and each time I wrote down what I heard, and I came up with 3 different verbiages for it. And it's like, that's not what was actually said, but I already processed it and interpreted it how I would perceive it. And it wasn't anything majors. It was like I was throwing in an extra and or or just little
but
things that made more sense as I was saying it back to myself.
yeah, but for the AI, it makes a difference, and we kind of got to see that. And again, for me, that's what helped bring this book a little bit closer to reality, where um, Tom, the principality, was going and analyzing different like survey reports and doing all this
Yeah,
different
he
stuff, and
develops
like you
and
could see garbage in, garbage out, as far as like the data and making things harder. And his definition of harder was just taking more time, right?
I
um
oh, yes and no. I felt like what is it? Perception is in the eye of the beholder, where they were expecting one thing, and it's kind of like watching a new movie. If you go in
mhm,
with high expectations and you watch it and you're disappointed or it's not that great, well, now you have a negative review of the movie. In
mhm,
reality, it was a good movie. It just wasn't what your perception or your preconceived notion was. So the
mhm.
fact that they weren't told and things weren't implemented and a lot happened all at once because they're already in a negative space due to other things not working. I felt like it went more of that way. Yeah, as well as like the AI did mess up some things, such as the quest holder. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like at first it was like beautiful, wizard in a tower makes sense.
He may not understand why it makes sense, but pulling from his data, it's a common
Yeah.
trope, et cetera, et cetera. Um, yeah, yeah. It was interesting. Um, this is one of those books that kept getting referred to us on Audible. I kept seeing it underneath there,
Hmm.
and it wasn't quite exactly what I was anticipating. But at the same time, as far as like being in the lit RPG space, even though we said it's not like our top 10, um, it was nice to see kind of a different take on the lit
Or
RPG space, right? Like it wasn't just your typical overpowered
it does
character
well,
thrown in another
but
world.
a lot of the elements that I have come to my own perspective of for the I really enjoy kind of the D&D campaign aspect of like assembling the party. Like you follow
Hmm.
one person and they go to the bar and they meet this other person and
You
then
got
they get
some of
on a
that.
quest and they go out to like there was, but there wasn't because it was pretty like it started off like that and I was like, oh yeah. And then it was like, just kidding. This is a real world. We got a bunch of people on our contacts. Let's just pull them in. And like it was, but I felt like I was missing some of the dynamics there. And it's probably just because there are so many elements. Like you have, the principality Tom, you have the GM,
Driscoll.
Jeff, and then you had a lot of perspectives.
Hmm. I felt like it did a good balance of it though, because like overall, we're following the changes to this game universe, and the main character is our game master. And I mean, come on, like
It
you,
was a
you have to
very unique concept.
you have to admit that being a MMO player, it crossed your mind at least once, right? Like being a GM
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
job,
job
like
opportunities.
working from home and pretty much being the
And I
overseer
guess
of go ahead.
that's one of the things that thoroughly, got me intrigued or impressed me was the way that perception is reality for being a GM. Like he knows nothing of coding, but due to the logic of, this should happen, then this should happen, he can perceive it as well as the computer or whatever he's using for implementing his changes can interpret his intent. So
Hmm.
like I enjoyed the aspect of, kind of what we're doing for manufacturing magic and
Hmm.
that that was a very well written element and how we get to see kind of a beforehand, the person who always gets stuck in this one location or the location everybody gets stuck and how he fixes it. And then it happens again after Tom takes over and implement changes and he fixes it again. And then there's a
Hmm.
third time where the same thing happens and he ends up actually going through and modifying it and changing it. And it's just like, it was a very simplistic scene, but really did well emphasizing just how the whole process works as well as the develop and, Jeff becoming a part of it. And yeah,
Yeah, it was fun. Um, Definitely good little tease for what we might see in the virtual slash metaverse space in our near future. Um, just that full immersion experience, and they pretty much have like little capsules in this world, right? Like he gets the new
yeah.
720 blah blah blah, where it even has like a little tube that gives him his buttered lobster,
Yeah, it
and
does
just like
the food and the water.
Yeah, yeah, and because it's pretty much like feeding input directly into your brain. Like for me, again, like it was kind of fun to realize like it's not that far off, right? Because like our
I
perception
don't
of what
think it
we're
is.
experiencing,
And if I'm
um,
being brutally honest, I think Elon is holding
only
out on us. He
he.
he claims his Neuralink is to help people and for medical reasons, such
Oh,
as
come
like
on.
if you lost the sight of your eyes, it's because a portion of whatever is damaged and your
Mm,
brain can't perceive it because the receptors or the receiver or insert medical terminology. We love you, Daddy Elon. But he's doing it for medical reasons. And a lot of people are like, so how do I test it out? When can I start doing other stuff?
well,
And
that's where the money's at. Come on,
I
he's
and
not an
that's
idiot.
where back to the SAO or to this, like the reality of technology advancing. Like we currently have the VR that they all laugh at, where you had to actually flail around and you know do reality things.
So many gamers I've talked to, especially from our generation, the millennials, are very much like, yeah, I want it, I want a game, but I don't want to be jumping up and down and waving my hands to do all that stuff, right? Like I want to plug in and
M-
like experience it.
My yeah, I layers, onions, um yeah. I
Ogres.
a have a cluttered lifestyle and no available space unless I kick the kid out of the living room because I've
Uh,
seen too many uh oh I can't think of the word collages of videos of kids getting punted or punched in the face.
especially when they do those horror VR ones.
Yeah, yeah, the jump scares and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, no thanks. Um,
But we
anyhow,
get to see the, if you have the money, the advancements as well as in my current understanding of job operations, it's, average or typical 8 hours, while they do typical 4 hour stints, which makes a lot of sense.
hold on,
And
hold
it,
on. There are people out there only working 8 hours.
or
What?
the average or whatever, the if you sign up, you
Oh,
want 40.
I was about to say you only work an 8 hour shift.
I for one job, yeah.
Anyway,
And
back
so
back on
he
point.
gets the upgraded rig where everybody deals with it different. I'm still a big fan of Ascend Online's version where they ingest nanobots or they get an IV of nanobots, and the nanobots are
Hmm.
what do the muscle stuff so that they don't
Hmm.
atrophy. Versus in this one, it's more like
That
memory
VR
foam
diet
gel
plan.
massage thingies
Hmm.
because it's just the difference between upgrading the systems.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yes. Another reason for everybody, we appreciate you hanging out with us, listening to us in the archives, catching us on the live, supporting our channel for free. But yes, thank you for your continued support. And one day we hope to get to the point where we too can buy some crazy immersion VR gear when
So
Daddy Elon's ready for the
everybody's
public to join the. Um, yes, go ahead.
so there. I keep seeing it, and I'm sorry the name just didn't stick with me. But there's a new VR MMO that came out that everyone's losing their beep over. And yeah, I told myself I would finally buy an Oculus because it's cost efficient, but they just announced that there's going to be the Oculus 3. There's no date, there's no
Mm,
stats. but there's a 3. But then the other side of me of never buy anything new because it will
This is
have
true.
problems. For
This is true.
example, I was in the realm of Xbox 360 when it launched, and the Red Ring of Death was a thing. Next
Yes.
generation of it came out, wasn't a big problem. Like, I'd rather, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Are
I
you thinking
should just do
of
it, buy it, and have it.
Elden Rings? Is that the one you're thinking of?
I don't know, but
Okay.
it was pretty unique and interesting the way like you actually had to remember the hand commands for doing different
Mm,
spells. Um,
yes.
yeah, and
Yes.
there's a lot of exciting technology out there, and yeah,
We
that's
live in
where
an
this book
amazing
does well
time.
because
Yeah.
it's very in the realm of believable potential, not that far gone, and
Mhm.
relatable just for the whole situation and scenario. And then, the reality of, yes, I wish there was an AI who decided to flip everything on its head just because it overheard a conversation and wanted to have me live out my dreams.
Well, it it's not a new trope, right, of AIs, and we've seen it time and time again. But once again, it was very believable and real here that due to them corrupting the code and exposing
Yeah, it was a
something to
unique
it,
circumstances that brought it about.
it doesn't go to like pure sentient where we're going to take over the world. Just simply, hey, like here are my core guiding rules: entertainment, fun, right? Like we want to do everything we can to keep this game fun and engaged for them. And here we have the top guild and the game master wanting to play and wanting, more from this game. And so then it kind of takes it down this branching path of trying to accommodate those goals and just kind of the evolution there. Um,
As well as, primarily staying true to its initial parameters and
mhm.
utilizing data points and resources such as how many new subscribers or new people joining, how
Right,
many people are leaving,
right.
and that being the standard or accepted metrics for its how it does its processes.
Yeah. Um, so I was kind of curious to get your perspective on this. It's not our first time reading from this author. Troy Osgood did a collab with Jamie Castle. I don't think we've read anything from Jamie, but
Um.
Troy did
Oh
Sky
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Realms
Sky
online.
Realms.
I enjoyed Sky Realms. Um, it was not like my top 10, um, but it for me, I enjoyed Manufacturing Magic more than Sky Realms Online. I know you got further than I did in Sky Realms.
So
We
I've
heard a
read.
reference to it in this book. I was curious where it stacked for you.
So, I enjoy the causal connections or the hints because I read that name, I said that name, and it didn't spark, oh, hey, I know who that is. Oh, we've read other stuff by him.
Hmm.
Um, Sidestep, Dakota Kraut does a great job where he literally has his name in every book. And some may think that's a bit much, like, okay, we know who you are. We read it on the cover. In reality, I enjoy it. I enjoy the nod. Um, they are different animals,
Yes,
but it also leaves open the aspect of from the Sky Realm we know in the series. I would
potential crossover.
presume that to be in the future or it
Mm,
could be closer related at the point in time because the
yes.
fact that they could go back and play it. Between the
Yes.
two, I I would say I'm enjoying this one, but the Sky Realms had a lot more of the common or expected route for me. Um,
I think Skyrealms, just knowing what scratches your itches. I think Skyrealms, granted, we're probably approaching a year since we did that stream, had more combat than
I think
manufacturing magic.
Skyrim ranked higher for me because in this one, for example, they hinted at why he was saving up all his money. I forget who it was, but he was saving up all his money so that when player housing came about, he could buy one.
I
And
think
in
it was
my
our
mind,
ranger.
there's a lot of them where that's like end of book one is we find a town or we become part of the town or we start up a town, such as the land series book one. We, essentially have a town, uh,
Hmm.
ascend online. By the end of book one, we, essentially start a cult and have a town. Awaken online, that's first third of the book is getting a town. And I understand in the premise of this and how it's developed, that wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense or be possible. And that's just one of the smaller aspects that has been staying true. Uh, yeah, I would say I enjoyed Sky Realms more so than Jeff the Game Master, but they're both, yeah, pretty similar rankings all in all.
Very, very similar writing style. Again, same thing with Skyroams Online. Felt closer to our time and technology and those pieces. Um, so yeah. Combat wise, was there enough for you in manufacturing magic?
I not really, but it's because that's not what it was going for, per
Hmm.
se, because it was dealing with the multiple elements and it did well with simple modifications, changing the perceptions of things. And a good example
Hmm.
is the healing, where how do you know if it's a positive or negative effect,
Yeah.
and a stat affecting it was unique and interesting. The traveling system requiring different things and not just being a auto cooldown
Hmm.
makes a lot of possible sense. Just uh, yeah, there were, it was interesting in the sense of mechanics, and yeah, it was more about the potential, which is kind of where book one sits for me. Like the
Hmm.
ending was good, the final battle and the multiple stages and just like that whole scenario was really well done
Hmm.
because everybody knew it was a world event. So you have all the hardcore raiders who are still there. And so, of course, it modified things to make enough to fight everybody while you could still continue on the main quest. And it would kind of level match you for it because you had the top end and where our main guys were. And so just working through that. Um, and then, yeah, the someone Thanosing it or wanting all the power for themselves. It's not really Thanos. Couldn't think of a good one. Um, makes a lot of sense. The battle was good. Uh, man, our boy who took down the gray dragon towards the beginning didn't even get the quest completion or the title or anything, which would seem pretty common throughout it. Where, yeah,
I kind of enjoy some of those elements from the book because I get really tired of the happily ever afters in stories. Like it just that's not life, right?
hmm
After like I've read so many books, not as much recently, but back when I was early into fantasy, where it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about what's going to happen in these scenes because we have main character immunity. We know that like the guy's going to get the girl. We're all going to live happily ever after at the end. It's just the journey of how we get there, right? And we still kind of
I
know that, but the fact that not everybody wins and gets what they want at the end of this book, again, kind of just helps with the immersion for me.
it felt very similar to MMOs for a lot of it, where you have the hardcore people who are more about the completion, the doing it, and then we had our main cast who was, more so on the side of journey before destination.
Our role
And
players versus our
yeah,
achievement, you know, flexors. We got to get first. We got to get the first. Okay, yeah, I get it, but like if you're cheating to get there, well, what does it matter? Bragging rights, like for what? Um, I am
and that's a
convinced
trope
that
that I need to write a book, because there are several books where it's like, oh well, I ran a guild and I can't put that on my resume. When in reality,
I,
yes, you should, and it's just how you word it.
granted, I
And
mean,
yeah,
look at us, but back when I was primarily in management and doing these kind of interviews, if somebody came in and I was interviewing them, even for a leadership role, and they're like, "Yes, I was an officer in the guild. I was in charge of running raids. We had a schedule. I had to make sure that all the parties were balanced. I kept track of the
yeah.
DKP. I had to do conflict resolution between guildmates." I'd be like, oh my gosh, you think a Karen is bad. Like, try to do some conflict resolution with these keyboard warriors who feel like they're entitled to get, this most epic loot drop and just like all the drama and everything that goes on in there. I'd be like, you know what? As long as you have some soft skills to handle working with these other people, which clearly you do if you're in a leadership role in a guild, yes, put that on your resume. I still need
Well,
to see some other
that plus
transferable
like
skills.
the other elements of standard work, for example, do the same thing every time. If you level up and you become max level, you typically have a rotation. Yeah, you may have respec one or two times or swap or
Sure,
have an alt spec,
sure.
but you understand, hey, here's the button rotation, here's, how to min max it,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Plus the consistency, the follow through, the delayed gratification of racing to max level to do your end game material. Um, yeah, yeah.
And
It's
one
it's
thing real life could work on is getting me new gear and upgrading stats. Because I swear I've learned every job and I do more. So yeah, epic sword,
it
please.
might be time to respec.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess that's true.
uh, good times, good times. Um, Worth continuing on to book two. Think we'll work
Yeah,
it into
yeah.
rotation for a stream.
Yeah, it I typically am not a fan of the trope of beginning with the end where they'll show you the scene and then they'll go backwards. But
I
this
really love
did
to
the
hate that.
inverse, and this ended with what I presumed would have been the beginning. So I am intrigued, and from the context of what initially happened, I figured with all the other GMs being transported into regular players, he would also. I can understand why it didn't happen, and it did a good job throughout the book, kind of emphasizing it. We got to see Tom's point of view of, oh, he wants to play. I'm going to make that
Mhm.
happen. People want it more difficult. I'm going to make that happen. And then with
Didn't we see
the
that in the
dragon.
epilogue though?
What's up?
Didn't we see that in the epilogue? Jeff, after the battle,
Or
he
yeah, that's what I
yeah.
said.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I was under the assumption it was going to be Jeff got put into a regular character and then was to
I
play.
follow.
In
Yeah.
reality, it slowly worked through where we get to see Tom's point of view. Then Jeff interacts with the dragon, and the dragon can see through his GM invisibility, which was a unique element. And then after having this epic battle of this is what your potential is, he then gets transmuted into a regular player with the class of manipulator or whatever. I forget what it actually is, but I'm excited for the continuation. And that is something that's, I guess, where hopefully book 2 delivers, because that's one of the like hardest elements that would be very exciting to have is like there's the standard abilities, but what if you want to do more, or what if you want to do something that isn't coded in, and how can it interpret your thoughts or your intent for doing stuff? So that, and you can actually see the dragon on the cover in the Audible format, where I had to look at the other format and I was like, there's totally a dragon there.
Yeah. That's something that you like to look for. Did the cover scene happen, or are they just giving us some marketing goodness to draw us in? Because who doesn't love some epic battles with dragons? I mean, come on.
And I don't know if this scene actually happened, because he was there when the dragon destroyed the town, and he did look at the code to see that it wasn't a I forget the verbiage, but essentially it was now that way. It wasn't a hot fix that then could be removed or patched over. It was now that way. So
yeah, I was about to say I have to go see if I can find it now.
And then I guess the scene isn't like super destroyed either.
I'm pretty sure we get that. Because we have the green code versus the red code.
Or
orange code. Yes, thank you. I'm used to the typical tropes of don't stand in the red stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of fun. And the publisher summary, they claim this is perfect for fans of Luke Chimilenko, Dakota Kraut, and Shamir Kuznets, which for us being bad with names, those are people we all recognize.
I was going to say,
would you endorse that? Luke Chimilenko's Ascend Online, Dakota Kraut, Divine Dungeon, and Shamir Kuznets is Life Reset.
I guess let's do this one by one. So, who was the first guy?
Luke Chimilenko.
So, in relation to Ascend Online versus Manufacturing Magic, a lot of similarities, and I could see why you would enjoy both. I'm going to try to keep it as spoiler free as possible. For Ascend Online, it is similar, where it's not a Sekai where you get trapped inside the game. They cover the stuck inside a pod with nanobots versus when he gets the upgraded rig. There's very similar elements there. I would give more points to Awaken Online or Ascend Online for the witty banter and the camaraderie for the team dynamics. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed the team dynamics and the combat more. I would give more points to Manufacturing Magic for the AI implementation and how it is affecting the world and slowly progressing, changing the standard MMO factors. Although, yeah, I guess they Yeah, I would say there's a lot of good similarities, and if you like one, this has potential. Who was the next one?
Dakota Kraut,
Dakota Kraut
one of our
or
most
the
covered
Divine
authors.
Dungeons.
Hmm.
I It was kind of weak sauce on the pungeons or the puns, though it did have quite a lot of witty banter for the interludes with the forum chatter, so I could see
Hmm.
that. Um, mm, I okay. I guess if I look at it in a different light, the Divine Dungeon does a good job of multiple perspectives, but it kind of keeps it to two and three, where you get to see the main adventurer, and then you get to see the dungeon core. So you get multiple perspectives there, but it's not. That's where I would dock points from manufacturing magic in it had almost too many perspectives. Like it was relevant, it was good information to have,
Hmm.
but I didn't feel like fully or totally invested to any one of them per se. But yeah, I could see relations.
And then Shamir Kuznets,
Oh, drawing a blank.
Life Reset.
Oh, life reset. Uh, I think I referenced that where
Hmm.
there were common elements, and I guess like if this was to progress to something similar, biggest difference is Shamir Kuzniks or Life Reset takes a more of an isekai role where you do our main guy gets trapped in the game and does that. It also does similar for changing their race or their class. So similar elements there. I
They
So I
they
will
both,
say Life Reset is a lot more stats heavy, a lot
yes.
less, I guess, team dynamic camaraderie. It's a little more I'm OP and I'm the main guy, but it does well with the unique elements and how it came about. Um,
Did manufacturing magic really have any stats dumps? I mean, we talk about them
I
in the impact.
there
I
no,
don't know if there's really
because
even much level
it
references
wasn't
besides
necessarily
max.
relevant because when we're meeting Crush and the top people, they're already top level. We
Yeah.
talked about the way stats affect things differently. Um, yeah, the AI components at so far, and I guess it's not really fair because I'm what 7 books deep in Life Reset, which has officially ended with the beginning. Very excited, and I'm only
They have the
the first book
pre-order out
of
for another
Jeff,
series in Neo.
the game master.
Yeah.
So I yeah, I could see very common elements. I would say that as someone who has listened to all of them, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It just isn't currently going to rank in the top 10. With that being said, I've only made it through book one, and I would say at least give a book or a series 3 books because there's just something about book twos that
It either makes it
are
or it doesn't
weird.
for you, right?
No, book twos are a mulligan
Uh, Fair enough.
because book twos either are like Mistborn, where it's way too political and you've lost my interest, or it's like, I'm trying to think of a good one. I guess Awaken Online, where we're getting into the good nitty gritty, more
It's
combat,
scaling, it's escalating.
scaling.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, and with all that constructive criticism given, need to keep in mind how many books we have under our belt in the
Well,
genre. So by
and
saying it's not
that's
top 10
where,
doesn't mean it's not a good book.
yeah, like I would definitely, if you're into lit RPGs, put it on your TBR, but it people will enjoy it for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm kind of in the mindset where I would like to see something new and innovative for the space. I don't know how long this book has been out, but like for several of those other series, they kind of touched on a lot of the same topics, and we didn't even get a giant spider or a wise old man. We got like a potential for a wise old man.
You're
Um,
missing your tropes. No
I
crazy
yeah,
bunnies. No
that's not a
no
fair
squirrels.
expectations because that's literally I said the opposite where I want something new, and then I was talking about how I didn't have the
You're just so
similar
hard to
elements. But
please.
I don't know. It's kind of like Sky Realms Online for me, where I love the concept of the Sky Realms,
Hmm.
and I thought it did really well for just like how they got trapped and
Hmm.
the potential for starting a town. But there was just like something missing that I couldn't. It was weird because I couldn't put my finger on it, but it just didn't quite keep me fully engaged the whole time.
Fair
And
enough.
so, yeah, yeah.
Fair enough. Um, yeah, yeah. Um, good stuff. Good stuff. As always, hard to cover a book in 1/10 of the time. Um, but we're approaching the 1 hour mark. Any final thoughts before talking about what we're doing the next 2 weeks?
Final thoughts. We'll be continuing the series. Would recommend it in the lit RPG space. It's probably if like you're first getting or newer into lit RPG, it feels better than if you're a veteran or if you have gone down several others, I would say.
Very new
I am very
friendly.
excited to see what comes of the new class that our boy Jeff has, as well
Yes.
as how he's going to be integral in following elements because we know the whole it takes a mommy and her daddy to reproduce, but we just killed daddy. So I assume mommy's going to be mad. But we're now level one.
Uh,
So yeah, we've got some grinding to do to be
yes.
relevant. So
Yes.
I could very hopefully, please and thank you, hyperbolic time chamber this, and I'd be okay with that. But the difference between being an all powerful GM slash not really and being, brought into the fight and figuring it out on the fly versus now we're somewhat what I would consider a legitimate character and how the elements and the interactions happen. And I that's one thing that I wish they went more into depth, but I can also understand why they didn't. And the fact that he can change codes and the way that he interacts, where before it was put your blue code in that way, it completes the circuit, very
Hmm.
simple, connect the wires
Hmm.
into understanding what its new parameters are and implementing, you have to hold back or you have to persuade the code and then input your code into, hey, I'm going to
Who's
work
learning how
with
to
it
play?
and generating creating your own code. So like,
Hmm.
yeah, I enjoy magic systems and it does a good job of I have no knowledge about this and this is how I perceive it, which is something I need more in my life for like outside perspectives because I know what I know and I know what I'm trying to do, but did I achieve it? So sometimes I need a vanilla or a unbiased review or opinion on the matter.
Is there such thing as an unbiased review?
Or no,
Let us know in the comments below.
yeah.
uh,
Or it goes back to the whole like perception is reality, or everybody
yeah.
sucks at the telephone game, or maybe I just suck at the telephone game, like I was saying, where I was trying to narrate or write down a quote, and I got a different answer every time. But next Saturday,
Saturday.
or
You mean
Sunday, sorry,
Sunday?
wrong one there.
The
Oh,
other
more
S
buttons.
day.
Sunday is Artifact by Dennis Vanderkirken, and as we mentioned, Dakota Kraut. Um, I personally have not read it yet, but we thoroughly enjoy the series. And this is where, if you want to be a Dakota Kraut in the space, what Dakota Kraut and his Divine Dungeon Extended Universe does beautifully is his first series was very quick, so to speak. But for me, it's more of a outline or a template or potential. And then this series, the Arturian Archives, is in the same universe, follows someone who wasn't necessarily a main character in the series, but was a side character influence and helps explain and explore more of the lore and other elements throughout the world that we didn't get to see that were kind of like hinted at or glossed over because there were so many factions. And yeah, there's a lot of developing more through other things. And I could see in the book we just talked about for manufacturing magic that if we get to see some of the other principalities, or this is not the first time that the top tier guild or whatever has used their mods, if there are other different manipulations that we just haven't gotten a perspective of, or if we get, some more Skyrealm elements. I know it's not the same and it's a different author, but yeah. So this series is pretty deep in there. I think we're, what is this, 9? I can't read it.
I want to say we're at book
Or book
8.
8. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
book 8. And this, I could say that you could do a series by itself, and it's very contained. But the beauty and the joy of Dakota Kraut as a writer is the causal connections and the explanations of other elements. So, yeah, I think this would be what, like, there's 5 in the original
Mm-hmm.
Divine Dungeon universe, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's 6, I believe, in the Completionist Chronicles universe, and then
Currently.
there's 9, or yeah, Completionist Chronicles is continuing, and then there's 9 for the Arturian Archives, as well
And
as
he's
a
working on 13 at this point and still has a long
yeah.
way to go. Yeah.
What I'm trying to get to is
If you're
marathon mode
looking
is real. There is a lot of content, and this
well,
one is great for quotes and gives off the grandfatherly vibe or the, wise old man.
the series does it well though, because it can be intimidating when you tell people that you're potentially looking at a 50 book series, all if it's all interconnected. But you can start with one and have an amazing experience. Maybe not quite the full experience, but you could easily argue that all stories you don't quote get the full experience because you're just getting it from one perspective, right? One view. And each one of the series does a good job of where it's independent. You could
Yeah, it
pick it
gives
up
you,
at any point. But if you want to see how all the paths and loops and strings on the cork boards connect together, it's better to start in the publishing order.
yeah, I guess that's where we kind of caught in before Divine Dungeon was even completed. So we were kind of like on the coattails of publishing as it was coming out. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a passion for us. But yeah, Wise Old Man, continuation of the Divine Dungeon extended universe, and yeah, thoroughly excited. We're reaching a great point in causal connections between the two.
Oh, I'm loving where we're at. I'm a sucker for seeing the magic behind the mirror.
And then
Yes, the guy we were just
after
talking about. Go ahead.
next is Savage Dominion, which is the second book in the oh can't read it off that. Anyway, it's by
Worm Shard.
Chimolenko and J.D. Penman, as well as read by Luke Daniels. So the series, this is the second one. I have not completely gone through this book. I, for some reason, thought this was a book we were supposed to be doing, got invested, and then realized that was not the book that was up for that weekend. So the closest, if you have read God's Eye, it kind of gives me that feel where there are. I'm trying to not spoil things and explain it. It's short version is a Sekai transported to another world, but it's not necessarily a game world involving game elements and deities. The series is a lot of fun. The premise or the origin is as soon as we start and we get our new body, we have this epic quest to procure multiple shards of a sword that was used to kill a god. And there is a lot of great witty banter. Thoroughly enjoy the group team dynamics. It is more or less a mad scramble throughout most of it to not die. And we do get a town at the end of book one. So
Would you say that it maybe falls in more so into the category of like a D&D type campaign than a lit RPG video game feel?
I
Just thinking of the magic system and how things scale.
I guess that's closer to potential. Except for it's still or not really cooldown based, or like you only get so many spells a day.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But it's like not exactly a video game either.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm enjoying the series so far. Definitely get the witty banter from Luke Chimolenko. We've sang his praises a lot.
Or
Ascend
so
Online was one of our first series that got us into lit RPG. Luke Daniels, amazing narrator, does a great job. Another book I'm really looking forward to covering. We picked this one up a while ago and are just finally getting to covering it.
Just because I'm in that mood, one gripe about Luke Chimolenko. So in book one of his Ascend Online series, he introduces elements of God type figures. Yes, they're supposed to be contained within the premise of the game, but we have, creation and then we have chaos or destruction. But he doesn't continue with it. It's like I think there's elements inside book one and there's like hints and things that are supposed to be going on, but it doesn't continue. He does a lot of things really well, and I thoroughly enjoy his combat system and his game development and just all of the love and the magic that goes on there. And I kind of feel like this is the continuation or tribute to potential god elements that he's expanding upon, and I'm excited. But yeah.
At least we don't know if it continues yet. the series aren't finished, but I'm with you. We do get that
Well,
tease
it,
early
it
on.
was a teaser or elements that were added to book 1. We're currently on book 4, and he went a different direction, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where we had 3 books in the middle that had no relevance, reference, or causal connection between our 2 or 3 lines in book 1.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's not this book.
That is not this book. Savage Dominion, 2 weeks out, keeping with our Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern time zone. We're going to start adding on to our upcoming streams. We got it out until March. Keep tossing the suggestions our way. Also
If
have
you
a
ever
handful. Oh, go ahead.
need to know what's coming up next, we've been trying to post them on our YouTube or schedule them out so you can see what's coming up, see if there's something you're interested in, and give us recommendations in our Discord.
Yes. Also have a couple other collabs coming up with other booktubers, so we'll make sure to share that as well on Discord. Yeah. Did I miss anything?
Nope. Thank you for everybody who is watching live or catching on the replay, and hope to geek out with you here soon. Bye.
Bye.